Hi, everybody. Time for our question and answers. I do have a quick comment on answers that I want to give to a couple questions I was given. I'll make it quick so you can get all your questions to me. I want to address this prebiotic thing. I've said it a lot, and people I don't think are getting it. There's only one real prebiotic, and that's colostrum. Now, all this other stuff is just basically starch and sugar that are in capsules. They give you some twigs from some plant. They say there's your prebiotic. Why do they do that? Technically, if it contains starch slash sugars, it'll feed bacteria. The bacteria that makes up the probiotic in your gut. Now, that's a phony way to do it. It's not really a prebiotic. That's like fertilizer. And so, and also you'd have a chance of feeding something like candida at the same time. But the only prebiotic is colostrum. Think about it. Child is born. It's instinctive. Every mammal knows that the first thing to do after taking a breath, the baby takes a breath, is nurse. And it's no accident that's there. It could be a million other things the body will want you to do. That's the prebiotic. That's the colostrum. And then after a day, here comes the breast milk loaded with what? Loaded with probiotics. And why we do that? So that the colostrum's there, the probiotic sticks to the colostrum and becomes residential, meaning living there. If you're using something like this sugar stuff, it doesn't do anything other than just kind of accelerates the growth of the probiotic for a couple hours, and it's just bogus. When you see a company selling prebiotic, if it's not colostrum, just laugh at it. And so that really should put that to rest. Think about it. What could possibly be considered more of a prebiotic than actual colostrum? And the other thing I just want to clear up, as far as the protocols that you can get now for $195 is basically a GI Cure protocol, which does handle what you would call IBS, Colitis, and Crohn's, which we all know are all really the same thing. Well, that's great. If you have those, you pick the IBS, Colitis, Crohn's protocol. But if you have constipation sometimes, we have you take, again, if you have inflammatory bowel, and you also have sometimes constipation, choose the constipation option, because the basic part of probably 2/3 of that protocol is the other one, the one for inflammatory bowel. So also it contains some things like magnesium and some herbal capsules that will help with the constipation. So you've got two that are almost the same, and one with the extra stuff for constipation. So that should clear up any questions you have about that. Do we have any questions?
All right, so we haven't gotten any questions yet from our viewers. I think they're just logging in right now. But we definitely want to encourage everyone to ask questions. I believe we had something left from last week, Doctor. Any other questions from last week?
I don't remember, and I apologize if I do. If I did and I forgot, I can expand upon what I just said, because I thought I might have wanted to rush if somebody, I want to make sure I'm not just rapping about my thing and people have questions. I want to talk about that protocol, the difference. I created a super protocol over many years, 40 years of experimenting, and a lot of it was guessing. When I started, there was no such word for probiotics. I had just on my own said, there's got to be some kind of biological activity. What I had done was I had closed my office. I had just started, and I said, everybody's coming in with these wild conditions, and they're calling them diseases. And there was originally just this Crohn's disease, and there was a Mr. Crohn's that he actually it was so rare they thought, oh, we'll call it Crohn's disease because there's only one of these kind. Well, it turns out it was not a disease at all. And so I went out and sat out in someplace quiet, and I was sitting out in the woods quite a bit and thinking, taking notes. And I was lucky enough, I found a company in Germany. I don't really know how I came across them, reading some obscure book. And they were talking about this powder. They said powder, and there was probiotic powder. And I was like, what? No, they didn't call it probiotic. They call it something else. So I got it. And it was dead powder. I realized it was probiotic that hadn't been refrigerated yet. And even they didn't realize it had to be refrigerated. And so, but it was literally from breast milk. Colostrum from breast milk was available. And we got that at a few places in the United States, where I actually put ads in a newspaper. And I said, looking for lactating women, which was an odd thing to write in the newspaper, but I had to qualify it by saying that we'll pay you for some colostrum. Certainly don't deprive the baby if you have any left over. So we used to get little packets sent to us, and we pay for that way. And then some people had goats. We used to get it through the mail that way. But then companies started making it. And to tell you the truth, I'm going to take a little bit of credit for it. When I started really beating the drum for colostrum, there wasn't anybody selling that. They didn't have any idea what the dairy industry didn't have any idea what they had. So I might have been the first. I was one of the early ones making a lot of noise about it. But it was between Germany getting this powder that they were saying was, probiotics, but it was dead because it hadn't been chilled, kept cold, and the colostrum started forming a combination. But what the point I want to make for the protocol, you have the super protocol, which is the GI Cure, has the probiotic with the right strains of bacteria. What are the right strains of bacteria, by the way? The ones that come in breast milk. I think of a constellation. You look up at the sky, you see the stars, constellation there every night. Or snowflake. If you look at it under a microscope, you say, look at the crystalline perfection. Well, probiotics are supposed to come to us in a certain structure. And so they're supposed to be like a plug and an outlet. The prongs have to fit just right. Well, you have receptor sites in your gut. They're just saying, come on, bring on the probiotic when you're born, and then sometimes we don't get it. And here it is, we provide a probiotic with the right strains, and they go right to the receptor site. They fit just like you're matching a constellation in the mirror. They go boom. And if you just take any old probiotic, you take any old probiotic. All the ones in the market I've seen are just kind of general trash. They're maintenance at best. But just want to finish that up. You take that with the probiotic and the colostrum, and you take that with both protocols. The difference is, and I should extend that a little further, with the protocol for IBS and such, there's also supplements in there that will rebuild the skin, fat, and muscle, which is what you need to do. You need to repair that so you're covering up the nerves and blood vessels when nothing is touching them. No acid, you've got skin, fat, and muscle, and the probiotic and colostrum, you put the whole unit together again. Okay? Now, with the other, if you have constipation, you're taking the same supplements, but you're adding some things and strategies for constipation. That's the worst combination you can have. Inflammatory bowel condition, which means your acids are eating your bowel wall because you don't have any protection, and the acids can't be released 3 times a day because they're trapped. Because you're not going to the bathroom, so you have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you're holding on to now retaining acid from 3 meals, and you don't have any protection. That's how you get your colon removed in the long run, is either that or if you take a drug that obscures the symptoms, that's how you have a bigger problem. So the protocol for the constipated people is the one you want. If you have just very, very rare constipation, don't bother with that. But if it's a consistent problem, you go with the formula that will be called, I think we'll call it the constipation protocol. Any calls yet?
Yes, we've got some great questions lined up. So hi, Doc. One from VD. Following your protocol, and we avoid high fiber food while healing. Do you advise on any supplements that would backfill the nutrients that we would be missing by avoiding high fiber foods?
Okay. Sorry for saying calls because I have a background in radio, so it was always calls. Fiber. Okay, one thing is that if you're not able to eat greens and salads and stuff, if you're worried about not getting the nutrients, you make a smoothie out of it. Put them in a blender and whatever else you want, yogurt or something in there. There are supplements. Supplements when we are looking to have low fiber, there are some supplements that are fiber powder. And the one difference with not eating fiber foods and the fiber that's in a fiber powder is they mill the fiber powder so it doesn't have rough edges. Like if you eat a salad, you're chewing it real good, but there's rough edges there. You don't realize how rough it is. A fiber that I would recommend is one that, like a flax fiber. I don't recommend psyllium too much because it causes a lot of gas. But these fiber supplements, they round them up so they're not a problem. You can use those, especially if you tend a little bit towards constipation if you don't have fiber. Designs for Health, they make a really good fiber. I forget the name of it. I used to be pretty tight with that company, but they make one that has the softest fiber. Designs for Health. I forget what because they've changed the name a few times. That's an excellent one if you're really sensitive to fiber during this period and you want to get the fiber. They have a variety of a blend of fibrous plants, and it's really soft fiber. So I think I've answered the question. Is you can blend the foods. You can get nutritional supplements that are basically, ground up vegetables and things like that. And anything ground up, even though this might be a plant that is fibrous, if it's ground up, even like applesauce. it's then by grinding it, you've taken away the negative part of it.
Totally makes sense. And can you share your views on fasting and pre-digested shakes? Would you say they help with the healing process? Mandy's asking us.
Yeah, they intermittent fasting is what a lot of people are doing nowadays. It kind of gives the stomach and bowel a rest. I mean, there are people, and used to be old school, we used to take somebody and pretty much lock them in a room and starve them and give them some slurpy, green, disgusting stuff to drink to keep them alive. So it's a bowel rest. And if you do it like a half a day even, if you just don't eat for the first half of the day or the second half, you're giving, anytime you skip a meal, you're giving it some rest, because no mucosal lining, acid is going to burn it. Supposedly we're building that mucosal lining and doing all that I talk about. Fasting is a good idea as long as you don't give yourself low blood sugar. And what was the other part of the question?
The other part of the question is if you would say it helps with the healing process.
And pre-digested protein.
And pre-digested shakes, yes.
Pre-digested shakes is good. You're still going to be releasing digestive acids, but you're taking less. And that gives you your amino acids. Amino acids are part of the healing structure when you're trying to build skin and muscle. You have to feed it what it's made out of, and that's amino acids. I was watching these bodybuilder guys 40 years ago. I said, they're sucking down a lot of these protein powders. What are they doing that for? To build muscle. So I said, let's scale that down and use some select amino acids. Now you got to watch out if it's pre-digested. I'm not sure what you have, and it could be. There's a chance that those could have digestive enzymes in them. So you look at the label. If you see like lactose and all these these little words that represent protease and some of the ones that represent digestive acids, you don't want that kind. You want it to be pre-digested. They've already done something in the lab to break it down, but you don't want that in the product itself, because those digestive acids will go in and digest your stomach. That's why I had a guy today taking digestive acids. I said, well, you're really speeding up the process. He goes, oh, I'm going to get better faster? I said, no, you're going to lose your colon faster. Don't take digestive enzymes plain. I'm not against them, but if you have an inflammatory bowel condition, that means they're going to have access to your bowel and stomach wall. If it's in a protein powder, which they do make them that way, I've seen it. That's kind of like their selling point. Oh, you also have the enzymes. Don't take that kind, because again, the acid will hurt you. Take one that's been pre-digested but doesn't have the enzymes in it, the acids in it.
Yikes! Well, so many things that we don't know about.
Yeah.
So we've got Tammy. Tammy's asking us a couple of questions that she got from some of the users, some others during the week. So can slippery elm and glutamine together alone be enough to heal the lining?
Yes, sometimes, but you can't. Here's what mistake people make: is they don't take enough. I talk to people who are taking like a, tiny amount capsule of each or something. We need the units to be measurable in powder, first of all, and by like a tablespoon, half a tablespoon, maybe a couple teaspoons. But it takes like, I think we figured it out with oil anyways, it takes like 32 capsules equal a tablespoon of the fish oil. So that'd be very impractical if you're doing that twice a day. The capsules for slippery elm and glutamine are like that also. You couldn't really swallow enough capsules to give you the amount you need. You get powder. You take, typically you start off with a half a tablespoon of each, and you got to give it a chance to work. I'd say at least a month. And it might be 50-50. It could give you everything you need. But you have to, I'm not going to skip over this part, you have to build that mucosal lining. Otherwise, every time you build some tissue overnight, you wake up, have breakfast, the acid from that breakfast is going to eat what you built overnight. So it's not just, I was thinking about in terms of building the structural wall. Yes, you can do that with those two supplements, but I'm telling you, you're not going to get anything done unless you replace that mucosal lining. And what's the other question?
We've got other questions. This has really caught my attention as we're building back up the mucosal lining. So does the mucosal lining coat the tissue evenly as it heals, or does it heal in patches?
Wow. Who the heck asked that question?
That's another one coming from Tammy.
Okay, well, the person who asked that is going to get a signed picture of me in my Speedo. That's your punishment. Okay? That's your punishment. That's the new punishment. Everything's going to have to do with Speedos and me, and you can never do that again because it's going to be so painful. Okay, evenly. Yes, it goes evenly. What it does is it just coats like putting down hot top. I was watching guys on putting down hot top, paving a road. Just goes smooth over all the potholes. Just put a whole new coating. The colostrum goes over and just whether it needs it or not, it puts a nice new coating on there. And it knows how to, wisdom-wise, it knows how to make it a little thicker than these two. If there's a hole there, it gives a little extra. Fill it in, but it's smooth colostrum. And then the probiotic goes over that, nice and smooth. It rolls over, steam rolls over everything. So if you have a little problem on the left side, but it hasn't shown up as a problem yet, if you have another one growing on the right side, it's all encompassing, and it goes up to your esophagus to some degree too. If you have a problem like heartburn, another one I innovate, I'm quite proud of that, is that you take some probiotic liquid and you take some colostrum, mix it up, shake it up like a cocktail, boom, 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 and you drink it down, and it's going to put a layer all the way down like a little coating, like you imagine a glass of milk. If you try to do that just with pills, it will crawl up the esophagus over many months. So it'll go wherever we put it and expand upon that. If you put some in the esophagus, it will grow to cover the whole esophagus. But if you do it for the stomach and the bowel, it will go evenly all wherever it's needed.
That's very interesting. Someone says, Chris says, I love my soft fruits. He can eat 10 bananas, 2 papayas all day. I think you were talking about the fruits before. So he says, I know they're allowed in the diet. Does that mean I can stuff my face with them every day?
Yes, because they're smooth. It's a texture diet, I call it now. Yes, you can. I don't know, some cases you might put too much pressure on your stomach if you have an ulceration or something, but no, really, you can have them all you want. I have a guy turned into a friend. I call him the Mango Man. He lived on mangoes for a year, and because they're trying to heal his stomach. I said, well, I guess you gave it a rest, but you got to put the other good stuff in there. So the answer is absolutely, he can pig out on those. As a matter of fact, you could pig out on, imagine this, you can pig out on Three Musketeer bars. You can pig out on anything like that. People say, no way, because the sugar is not an irritant. It doesn't have fiber. So yes, you can. And of course, we try to stick to the healthy stuff.
That's right. And we got a funny one here. It's talking about the Twinkies. You talk a lot about the Twinkies lately. It says, Dr. Snow, we should all have had plain Twinkies, but in this hot weather, we've been trying to put the Twinkies in the freezer for cold frozen Twinkies. What do you think of that?
I hadn't thought of it. We used to put something called the Charleston Chew candy bars in the freezer, and then we smack them as a kid. I think everyone did that, and they fracture into little pieces. That's a funny one. I haven't heard of that. You can certainly stock up on them. There was a Twinkie. There was a rumor that they were going to go out of business and not produce Twinkies, and everyone was hoarding them. That was the great hoarding of 1989. It was written up and everything. It was pretty, we have a Twinkie Hall of Fame here. It's all these articles and everything about Twinkies. That was a pretty big deal. I talked to the company recently, and they were thinking about putting a little fiber in there. I said, don't do it. You're going to lose my thousands and thousands of people. But you could freeze them, I assume. But it's going to take a while. You know how you put your tongue in there to get all that creamy stuff out of there? You're going to have to wait for it to, if you're craving, you're going to have to wait for it to melt. Now, we've been doing with the hot weather, we've been making kind of a Twinkie lemonade.
Twinkie lemonade.
Yeah, we put it in some water and some ice and a little bit of, stir it up, and it's delicious.
There you go. All right, we got another one. It says, at what point do you advise to discontinue medication?
Good question. That's almost a signed copy of a Speedo question, but not quite. When they're too hard for me, that's how I get out of it. Okay, here we go with the first
and maybe here's a little guide, because they say absence of symptoms or mild symptoms.
Not mild. Here's the process. We start the work with you. If you're taking medication and you still have symptoms, we feed you whatever you need to get symptom free while taking the medication. That's a big step down. Then we start to wean out the medication, see if you're symptom free. If you're not, if you're halfway through, you get starting to bleed a little bit. We pop back up to the prior dosage of the drug, and then we will do a little more work with the protocol. Come down again. Now you're off the drug. Okay, a little bit of symptom, but not much. We do work to fix that symptom. So to go what they say is once we become symptom free, then we start testing with what? Food. We start saying, well, let's eat an apple. The heck with Twinkies, we had enough of those. Let's eat something healthy, a salad, things you couldn't eat before. If you pass through that test over about maybe a month, we say we set you free. If you're symptom free, we set you free. As long as you have a symptom, we don't. And so my job is to deliver you to be symptom free with an ironclad stomach where you're not fragile. If someone says to me, it happens all the time, well, I'm okay as long as I don't eat pineapples and I don't eat pistachio nuts and a long list. I go, so you're okay? No, you have to be able to eat everything. We actually send you out and get some of the wildest stuff and say, eat that, and see what happens. And then you're free. But mild symptoms, no. Even the tiniest one, I'll hunt you down. I'll hunt you down if you think you're going to get away with me, because you're going to tell people, yeah, I don't want anyone saying, well, I'm a lot better. That's not satisfactory to me.
That makes sense. How long does it take? Could this be a medicine indefinite to work with the other supplements to stop diarrhea?
How long to stop, if I understand properly, how long to stop diarrhea is there's two parts to the question, two answers to the question. One is you can stop it right away with certain supplements that will just go in there and dry up some of the water, to make the stool more firm. That will happen. That can happen in a matter of a day or two or three. I turn my phone off here. It's probably some president of some country. I'm so important. So if you take one of these herbal type supplements, it'll dry it up, and you'll be not healed in any way. It just will stop the diarrhea. Somewhat like Imodium or something, but natural. The way diarrhea is ultimately fixed is through healing that mucosal lining and all that, and that can take 3 months. But to be healed, usually that'll be you'll be diarrhea free in a month and a half in the worst scenarios. So there's something called Saccharomyces boulardii, impossible to say, that will stop that diarrhea. But you don't want to get hooked into just taking that, because the damage continues every time you eat. And I mentioned last week, every time you take that 40 sips of water an hour, you're releasing acid. And just because you're taking a natural pill that stops the diarrhea, it doesn't do you any good to keep eating and swigging water if you're not doing the other part of the protocol.
Makes sense, doctor. Do you advise staying on a supplement maintenance dose when trying new foods, or start new foods when we are done with the supplements?
Good question. First of all, I don't always do maintenance. Sometimes I do. Certainly if anyone has the slightest relapse and calls me 3 weeks later and says, you know what, I had a little diarrhea yesterday, I'll put them on a maintenance. Maintenance would be the original protocol put down to once a day, usually 1 pill a day of each of the things you were originally taking. So we do that. At the end of when I think you're healed, I'll say let's just start taking eating the food, and see how you do. And if I think you need to go a little further, if you tell me, I get a little bit of diarrhea, that's when we go to the supplements and the food. But first of all, I want to try to set you free. I want to prove to us your true status with no supplements. By the way, how do we wean off the supplements? Another one I like to share that I innovated was that we take the supplements, and you tell me somewhere along the line, hey, I think I'm symptom free. I say, good, let's wean off the pills, the natural supplements. And how do we do that? When you run out of them, keep taking them the way you are. When you run out of one, you don't replace it. So you run out of your colostrum on Tuesday, don't replace it. See how you do. Make a little note. Stop colostrum on Tuesday. Okay, and then what do you run out of next? You run out of your amino acid. You don't replace it. We see how you do, and as you run, that's an organic way of doing it. As you run out of things, if you do well, you keep on eliminating the next one you run out. So that's how we wean off, and then we see how you do, and we either go right to the food, or we go with supplements and food.
That totally makes sense. And we got a question from Chris. He says, I want to add some weight after losing 20 pounds of muscle for my flare. Should I just add more colostrum pills? And that also adds another question. Should we just add more pills to heal faster?
Chris, I know you so well, Chris. That's a Chris question. I know you, Chris. Probac isn't going to put on 20 pounds. I mean, colostrum. Colostrum not going to put on 20 pounds. It's more like a pound or two. Now, if you're working out, it could be a little more than that. It's not a steroid. It has anabolic properties, which means it does one of its jobs in nature. Baby, right? Has the colostrum. It helps grow a body. It's not going to make the body grow at some unnatural rate. So anabolic steroids, different thing. They're anabolic, obviously so powerful and natural. So Chris, if I were you, I'd recommend take a little extra colostrum. And if you're working out or taking some kind of protein powder, you're going to perhaps put the weight on a little faster than you would. But you can't push nature too much on that. Mothers are always begging me, make my child grow faster, make my child put on weight. And nature's only going to do that when it really wants to. What was the other part of the question?
Yeah, the other part of the question was, should we just add more pills to heal faster?
Yes, you can do that. My strategy is always start from the bottom, start slow, work our way up, and so we can really get a clear picture of, okay, you need this now, need that now. Some people bypass me and they go to a higher amount. You gotta. It's not always the best strategy, but it can be. And if you want to try it, I endorse that. And Chris, excuse me, I know you, Chris, and I endorse you doing that because you don't believe me, but you're not that bad off. And so you're not likely to mess yourself up with nutrition anyways. So I would go for it because I know you want this so bad, and keep in touch with me.
I think I'm going to give it a try myself, doctor.
It's just food. It's just food. It's like eating. Do I eat one banana or three? It isn't necessarily going to do more of exactly what you want, but yes, it can accelerate things.
Excellent. VD says that earlier podcast, you mentioned the Ion Biome by Dr. Bush and also about spirulina and butyrate.
Yeah.
What's your advice on adding them alongside your protocol? He doesn't want to add anything without your approval.
No, there's absolutely a plus. Should add it. I don't want to burden people with too many supplements, so I try to stay what I call bullseye things, meaning that they are the exact thing right there. Nothing that's on the periphery. A lot of things like that guy yesterday was drinking the bone broth, and it might help you, but it's out on the fringe of that dartboard. Go with the stuff that's the bullseye. And what was the other part of the question? I have to keep on asking.
Yeah, no worries. So basically, what's your advice on adding them alongside your protocol?
Oh, yeah. Well, spirulina and the trace minerals, those are special. Those are on another whole level. Nobody who's maybe manufacturing, but no stores, no nutritionists, nobody understands what that stuff really is. And the stuff from Dr. Bush, no one understands that. You have companies distributing it, shipping things over FedEx and everybody. No one understands what that stuff is. That's a whole nother level. That's not really even nutrition. That's energetic medicine. Spirulina will help anything heal faster because it's providing the cell with what it needs. Spirulina and probiotics, they were originally on this planet. If you believe this type of thing, evolutionary. If you don't, don't listen. But they were mates. The minerals and the probiotic and the spirulina joined together and started feeding each other and developing a structure. And they are so primary. When someone said to me the other day or said online that there might be some problem with drinking spirulina, I don't know who's doing these studies, but no. I used to drink a year's worth of spirulina in powder a day. Did it for a year on a radio show, simulcast radio shows to see it was me out live, and I would drink. I would do things like that, do stunts. I said, "Yeah, you think that's toxic, colloidal silver? Watch me. I drink a year's worth of it every day because I had stores. I could afford to do it." And spirulina is amazing stuff. Turn on the circuits in your brain, and it can be totally taken with a supplement you're already taking. It'll be a complete assistance. It'll help things grow. Don't overlook the trace minerals by Trace Mineral Research. They're the ones that have all the trace minerals. And there's only one of them in the world like that. So you take the probiotic with the right strains of bacteria, combine it with spirulina and trace minerals, you get a winner. You're going to start functioning on a cellular level in a way that most humans don't. There was research. There was Tibetan monks that used to meditate, and they took their all kinds of tests. They measured their hormone levels, and they were producing hormones that other humans didn't produce because they were going to a certain state of consciousness, and their glandular system would start functioning at a level we're not even aware of. There's these other levels, like first, second, third degree gears in a car. Spirulina will bring you to that next level. You start being happier. When I was hot and heavy on that stuff years ago, you could almost tell who was sucking down the spirulina. You couldn't wipe a smile off their face, and they were just very positive. You can feed the brain circuits that are just being ignored right now. You refine foods, you're not going to get certain nutrients to the brain that will make hormones that make you happy. Then you take things for depression and anxiety. You know, feed the brain. Give it some other stuff like lecithin, phosphatidylcholine. Feed the brain, but don't do it. Here's another tip. You get so sick of hearing it probably. You have probiotic and colostrum in every cell in your body. Just like the stomach, now it's ready to receive the spirulina. When it knocks on the door, the inner mucosal lining says, come on in. And just like the stomach, it will digest it and process it at the highest possible level. So whether you're taking a medication, getting high on drugs, or doing anything, you absorb it and use it better. But you take an herbal capsule like slippery elm, and you haven't dumped any mucosal lining in your gut, subsequently out to the bloodstream, you're not going to absorb that. You're going to say, well, Dr. Snow's stuff doesn't work. Why? Because you didn't do the probiotic and colostrum. You put that stuff in the probiotic and colostrum. It's not simple. It's sacred stuff. Sacred. You put that in your body, in your stomach, and it fixes the stomach. Same time it's going out to every cell. You have a disease or something developing in the eye, it just might cut that off and stop it or minimize it. But you're not going to get much out of your supplements in your foods unless you load up on the mucosal lining. You know, I call it the bio software, biocomputer. I have a whole thing about that. If you have foods that have a certain code, everything you would swallow has a code. Even if you swallow a mosquito by mistake, there's a code that has. The mucosal lining recognizes that code and processes it. One thing it does is neutralize germs. You go to have a sandwich, you split a sandwich with your girlfriend. It's tainted, okay? It's got salmonella or something. You have that high level of the mucosal lining software. You're not going to get sick. You ate the same sandwich, she's going to get sick. Stuff like that. There's benefits to doing things on a higher level. It all comes down to taking the right stuff. There's only a handful of those things: probiotic, colostrum, spirulina, trace minerals. Maybe a couple other things. I'm not going to tell you all my secrets right now. I want to be the guy with the highest hormone level on the block. Okay.
That makes sense, doctor. We have another question from Kit. So he says, I have proctitis, and I found slippery elm, colostrum, and probiotics as a good enema mix. Is there anything else that you can recommend as an enema?
Enema, yeah. Well, I guess say to Kit, Aussie, Aussie, Aussie. He's down under. Isn't that what they say down there? Aussie, Aussie, Aussie. There's some stuff called MSM. Anytime you take MSM, I forget. I used to rehearse these names. Methyl sulfonyl is what it is. It's a, believe it or not, it comes from trees. And when they process it into paper, this water comes out. It's very healing stuff. If you put it on your hands, and DMSO, it's going to take care of arthritis. Imagine that. It'll kill arthritis for probably 10 hours. And then you have to rub it all the time on your hands or feet, whatever. For enema, you put MSM. It's a pretty common. You can go on any website online and find MSM. It's totally non-toxic. And you put that in there. What's it do? Osmosis. It pulls like a magnet. Once it gets in the cell, it pulls other stuff in there. Good stuff. It says, come on in, drags it in. So when you put in an enema, you're putting that in there, and it's present. So anytime you add MSM to anything, it's going to make it much more powerful, much more potent. That would be. I wouldn't even really bother with other things, because anything good that you can think to put in an enema, like for what you're talking about, slippery elm, even though you're taking it orally, slippery elm butyrate is a big one for proctitis. Down below, take some butyrate, put it up your butt, and go to bed if you can, if it's not too uncomfortable. It'll get sucked right up, and you'll anyone that has a bleeding syndrome that's just not getting healed, put it in the butt. I mean, they do that in hospitals anyways for people that a lot of nutrition will get absorbed that way. MSM. Yeah.
Fantastic. We got a question from Chris. He says, I heard cat's claw and licorice root help with IBCs. Should we just stick to the program, or can we add stuff like that?
Well, thank you for honoring the question, because I say just do the effing program protocol. I'm not much of a cat's claw guy. I know about it. I never use it. What was the other one? Licorice or DGL?
Yeah, licorice root. All
right.
Cat's claw.
Yeah, you can pretty safely do those guys. Those are the ones I would endorse if you are just hungry, you want to get better and faster. Those are harmless. I mean, cat's claw I don't know that much about other than it's really good, but I just have never caught on to it. And DGL, which is a form of licorice, you usually get deglycerized. It does a lot of things, and one of them is especially stomach. I'm sure down lower GI, but especially stomach, if you have an ulcer or something like that. Yeah, I endorse those. You can take those without any problem.
Perfect.
I won't yell at you.
Excellent. I'm not sure we were following a thread, but Tammy's asking, what brand of trace minerals? Was
Well,
that something that you might have mentioned before?
yeah, the company is called Trace Mineral Research. They're out of Salt Lake City, Utah, and they get it from Salt Lake. And it's the only company that has. I mean, it's a little controversial how many minerals there are. If you get most of the companies sell minerals, like, hey, there's a mineral. I'm going to start to get some minerals. They're only going to have like half a dozen minerals in this, like, and you laugh at it. There's 101 at least. There's 72 that they will promote that they have. The reason that they don't promote they have all of them is that the government, the science, has never researched a lot of them, and so they don't really want to go out on a limb and claim that these supplements have any healing properties when we know they do. I do a hair analysis, for instance. I do a lot of hair analysis tests, and it tells you what the status of your minerals are. And when you feed them the company Trace Mineral Research, you'd say, okay, overall across the board, you're low in minerals. What we do is we find that if we give them that brand, the levels go up. The hair gets more mineral. What it actually is that when you have a lot of minerals in your system, they throw off waste at some point. It's being used, and there's a certain amount of waste that's thrown off. That gets thrown off to the hair. And when you take a hair sample, it tells you if you see sky-high mercury, that means that there's a lot of mercury in the system because it's sending off a lot of waste. Trace mineral research is another important thing. Let's say 72, really 101, I believe. And you go to get a regular mineral from some other company, 6, 8, 9. Give me a break. That's going to do nothing. 107, not 101. Not only that, but they're in the right proportion. That comes through with hair analysis. Is that it's like the snowflake effect? Is that they come to you. You don't want to just have minerals. You want to have minerals that are in a group, that are in their right formation. There's supposed to be a ratio. It's a very complicated picture I've seen where it's the lines, they're all linked together, showing you the relationship of one to the other in times 72. Well, you don't have to worry about that. Trace mineral research is going to give you, so just say magnesium and calcium. Here's another one I just want to share. Calcium supplements, total bullshit. You never want to take a calcium without magnesium because it's going to end up being I have a story about the Tums lady will tell you sometime. It'll just line your colon like a tile in your bathroom because you have to have magnesium to liquefy it. Another one, companies say, well, I'm smart. We're a smart company. We're giving you some calcium and magnesium, but they have a ratio of twice as much calcium. Usually it's 2 to 1 as magnesium. Well, the magnesium is twice as much calcium, and you need to have a ratio. There's only 1 or 2 companies I know of that have twice as much magnesium as calcium. So if you're going to take a calcium pill, never alone, have it with magnesium with higher amount of magnesium. To morph over to what I was saying, the trace minerals research, they're all in a natural form. So much of this, so much of that, so much of that, so much of that, and they all relate. If you take one and bring it out of the proportion, say you pumped up somehow, artificially pumped up the sodium, as another example, another good example, any of them, wild names. If you do that and you pump it up, or take one out, throws everything off. Trace mineral research, why it's so sacred, they know their stuff. They're not one of these companies selling something that I know more about than their product. They know their stuff. All ratios. If you saw the ratios, you say, wow, that's sacred. A quick thing about that, trace mineral research, I was promoting on our radio show. And I had a contest all the time. Said, who can name me all the minerals? Because they're wild sounding names. There's 72 of them on a bottle. And so we had a contest. And so this lady, she had the bottle in her hand, and she was kind of cheating because it was supposed to be without the bottle. And we have her. She's trying to struggle with the name. She's trying to, we're trying to go, she's trying to go as fast as she can. And so I said, hey, listen, we got to take a break. I can't wait for you to stumble around. Rehearse while we're on the break. And I didn't turn up the microphone. And so she's going over them. She's struggling with the names. And she's, oh, fuck. She didn't think she was on the radio. She says, oh, fuck. She was rehearsing, and she made a mistake, and so we kept it on that way. And she kept on rehearsing. She said, oh, shit. She was swearing, so we put it back on, and we gave her the prize anyways, even though she couldn't finish it. But that's the contest we used to have, and it was a way to teach people about trace minerals. Because I used to have other contests. How much of this is in that? Which we might do here. Tell me the reason we're taking this or that. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, definitely. Is there a particular butyrate supplement that you recommend? So he says, I use calcium magnesium based delayed release capsules.
Yeah, there's usually it's the one I use is Bio Body. Bio, the word bio body dash body. You got to watch out. Usually they have magnesium in them, a good amount of magnesium. If you're dealing with diarrhea, this is a pretty big tip right here because it can be difficult to take the wrong thing because you'll be having diarrhea. Usually they're magnesium based. Okay, so you have it's usually like magnesium butyrate. And so you got to watch out. There's companies that sell that, and you say, "Well, I don't want the magnesium part. I got diarrhea. I'm trying to fix my problem." They have one with sodium based. And if you don't have a problem with sodium, you take that one. Or I hadn't seen the one with calcium. I don't know. Maybe I have, but yeah, you can take that. And but always make sure if you have problems with diarrhea already, you don't want to take the one with magnesium in it. Was there another part of the question? I get too much into the first part all the time.
No, that was his comment. He just commented that he uses calcium magnesium based delayed release
Yeah,
capsules.
as long as the calcium's higher than the magnesium, because the calcium will solidify the stool. See,
Perfect.
calcium makes things hard, magnesium makes things soft, and they work together to harden and soften each other.
That makes sense. What about parasites? Says Ginger. Hulda Clark claims that parasites are at the root of all disease.
Oh, hold on. No. She made a living on that, and she probably improved a lot of people's lives that had other things, but she wasn't healing it. I met her. She's a nice lady. She wrote some cool books, her and Ann Wigmore and stuff like that, those people. No. There might be parasites, but they're not causing IBS, Colitis, and Crohn's. If you go to Mexico and you drink the water, supposedly, who knows if that's even true anymore. You drink the water, you get Montezuma's revenge. I don't think Montezuma was in Mexico anyways. It's in Florida, I think. So, anyways, it can make you funky for a few days, but your body will always process it. You won't have Montezuma's revenge the rest of your life. That would be a parasite. Parasites are way overrated. I've never seen them to be an issue. I've tried to prove that they're real, and everyone who hears me say this, who's a parasite believer, they're going to ream me, but I haven't seen it, and I'm not disputing it so much as saying I haven't seen it in my field. They might be causing all these other things you people call me about and say, well, can you help me with my tinnitus or something? I think it's parasites in my ear. I'll say squirt some colloidal silver in your ear and find out. Parasites are a necessary part of the inner environment. It's only when they get out of whack. If a healthy person swallows it with good mucosal lining, swallows a parasite, it's just going to get neutralized, digested. So I don't have much to say about Hulda Clark, and that's really old stuff. So I haven't seen anything about her for a long time. I'd be surprised if they're still active. I don't think she's alive. She must be old if she is. So I'm not a big parasite believer, sorry.
That makes sense. We got another question from Chris. He says, you mentioned DMSO.
Yeah.
He knows people that take that orally to help rebuild their collagen.
Wow.
So he's heard that collagen is good for rebuilding the gut. Is that a good idea or steer clear?
What was it? You heard that what was good for?
That collagen is good for rebuilding the gut.
Collagen. Well, that's a different question. DMSO, yeah, it tastes terrible. You'd have to really be a tough person to drink it. It's non-toxic, I think. I don't advocate it because I don't know for sure it's non-toxic. It's supposed to be even safer than water. I don't know. It's got a terrible smell. It smells like garlic. You could drink it and get benefit from it, but you don't really need to. Here's an example of what it does. It's a penetrator. It penetrates. They were usually using it to clean tools. They would buy it from the paper industry in Maine, and they would have this liquid. It was a good dissolver. And they would clean tools, and everyone found that, oh, my hands, I don't have arthritis anymore. And for many generations, they said, I think it's that stuff we're washing the tools in. So what's it do? It penetrates. So if you put, for instance, you had a elbow was sore. You banged it, and you put an aspirin, you crush the aspirin, put it on the elbow, and you put DMSO on top of it, it's going to drive it into the tissue to give it you more benefit than just taking an aspirin or, Tylenol or something. I learned that from drug addicts. Drug addicts would come in, they'd buy that, put the drug on there, like inner wrist, and they would crush it and they would put DMSO on it. And or they would come in after they're burnt out, they would come in and use amino acids to try to replenish their brain chemistry, and they would do that at the same place. So the same people come in one day, and the next day they'd be burnt out. Collagen. Well, I don't use collagen much. Collagen, from my experience, my knowledge, is a little bit more geared towards building joints. Another thing I want to tell you about that DMSO real quick. Toenail fungus. The issue is that fungus is usually living in the nail. So if you take something like oregano oil and you put it on the toes, and then you put DMS over it, it's going to drive that oregano oil into the toenail, or whatever you want to use. There's a lot, because it's not really my world. There might be other things out there that are better, grapefruit seed extract or whatever. But the key is the DMSO driving it in the tissue. Collagen, my knowledge, my understanding, is more so for joints and ligaments and cartilage. But a lot of people are drinking it. I don't see them, because if people are drinking collagen and getting healed, they're not going to call me. So I don't see it, so therefore I don't believe it.
Perfect. Let's see. We've got... Okay, someone says, I'm from Mexico. Don't drink tap water if you go there. Oh, I don't think we're going to be drinking tap water in America either. I mean, water's as bad as anywhere it is on tap, right?
Yeah. Well, usually there's chlorine, which is an antibiotic. You don't want to drink that every day, all day. Same thing. It's in a pool, a swimming pool. We're not going to stop swimming in a swimming pool, but if you go in there a lot, you might lose a little bit of your good stuff.
Doctor, what do you think about? And this question isn't here in the comments, but what do you think about the food itself? We know that you mentioned a lot about it doesn't matter much what you eat, except for the things that we have to avoid. But what about breads and typical foods in America, like people eat burgers out there, pizzas, things like that?
Well, I'll tell you a phenomenon to me. It comes on once in a while. It comes up, is that people all the time tell me that when I got IBS, I got colitis. They said, but I went to Puerto Rico, or I went, I'm trying to think of the different places. They told me I left the country. They feel much better. They come back, they feel like crap again. A lot of my listeners, a lot of people listening will probably say, yeah, I've done that. It's got to be something to do with the food. I mean, they're doing stuff for food in other places. I don't think any place is as aggressive as the United States for tampering with the food. This whole subject, Monsanto and all that stuff, I don't get into it because it's too far away from what I do. But the reason I say don't worry about the food is because for our purpose of fixing a gastrointestinal problem, I don't want you worrying about whether you're going to have broccoli or cabbage for dinner. It's insignificant. We're talking about fixing your colon. If you want to talk about other things, nutritional value, we don't care if something has a little bit of vitamin C or a lot of vitamin C. It's the consistency, not what we do with food is avoidance. We just don't want to aggravate the bowel by dragging some roughage over it. Bread is okay because it's cooked. But you're talking about gluten, you're starting to get one step away from what I do. Here's the thing about gluten. You're not celiac if you weren't celiac from day one. You don't become celiac person at 20. That means your digestion has been thrown off, your mucosal lining, your software. So you're just going to repair that. If you're celiac, I can't make you able to tolerate gluten. Same thing with lactose intolerance. Yeah, sure, you're having trouble digesting lactose. But if you weren't that way from the day you were born, you're not lactose intolerant. It means we'd be able to fix that. We fix that by tweaking the software. Other than that, if there's a question beyond that about food, I don't know anything about that. See, my food pyramid, we've all seen the food pyramid with grains and eggs and poultry. My food pyramid is just Twinkies. Every slot on the pyramid is Twinkies. And the point I'm making, kind of adjusting, is that for my world, food doesn't matter. It's just not roughness. And a quick note on that, when I was heavily Twinkies promoting them, people in Europe were listening to the show, and they thought it was a drug. They went over and they were asking their doctors for a prescription for Twinkies. So, we had to clear that up. There isn't one yet, anyways. But what else? What other questions do you have?
All right. So I think they're still talking about suppositories. So Tammy says, make butyrate and coconut oil suppositories. She's saying, and I don't understand this question much, but she's saying pretty much to talk about those healing bottom suppositories. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, I was just starting to form a thought on that. There's a company called Healing Bottoms. That's what they do. They heal bottoms. In some parts of it, they're more of an expert than I am. All they deal is with like suppository products. They might have some oral ones too. They they're pretty amazing at the combination they have of suppositories. A lot of it turmeric, which I had a problem with. I said, turmeric? Turmeric's like a blood thinner. So I said, if you're bleeding, you put turmeric up your butt. It works. Now, I think I've had a couple people say, well, it didn't. It caused the blood thinning and more bleeding. But majority of them have said no. It's worked great, which I couldn't figure it out. Still haven't figured out how it can work. But they were very confident. I called them up and I challenged the heck out of them. I threw everything at them. And they were pretty smart. They didn't back down. Said some things I didn't understand or didn't agree with, but their products are quite effective. Called Healing Bottoms. They're probably on the internet. If you tell them that, you heard me talk about it, they're probably going to give you right away more information. And so, because they'll know you're fairly well schooled already. But Healing Bottoms.
Excellent. We appreciate all this great information. Let's see. We don't have any more questions other than comments. I'll read something just for a little bit of humor here. Madman says, is this a good example of colostrum in action? I cut the roof of my mouth. I put powdered colostrum in my mouth. It caked into the cut, and I felt better.
Yes. That's bootstrapping. That's bootstrapping. We just use some common sense and under extreme cases say, let's try this. I did it one time. I cut my finger pretty bad. I was out in the woods going around, and I knew that urine was supposedly healing. I knew people who drank their urine. Crazy. So I peed on my finger every time I had to go, and it was amazing how much it healed, how fast it healed. I also spit on it. You watch your dog. Your dog is spitting on their wounds. So that's in the spirit of what that fellow said was you innovate. You jam some good stuff in the cut. I think I've done that with some other things. I gouged something or whatever and just took something and jammed it in there, hit some slippery elm, boom. And it seems to work. Good going.
Excellent. Lots of foods have citric acid that drills holes in the gut.
Yeah.
Says Mara.
Yes. If you have an inflammatory bowel condition, this is moot. If you don't have an inflammatory bowel, if you fixed it, you have a nice thick layer of mucosal lining, it's moot. But if you're on the mend, it doesn't matter because it's going to bounce right off that mucosal lining. But if you look at a lot of the magnesium is magnesium citrate, vitamin C, citrate. You don't want to take those while you're on the mend. Afterwards, it doesn't matter. Just like an aspirin product. I told a lady I'd have an aspirin eating contest with her any day. And the meeting, and I told her I'd be the champ because I have a nice thick mucosal lining. Aspirin will dig a hole in your gut only if you don't have enough mucosal lining. So remember, replace the mucosal lining. You can swallow anything. I've had 3 or 4 Texas guys, cowboy guys, young guys chewing tobacco, and they swallow the juice a lot, and it makes them somewhat sick. And they started taking the probiotics, and they were at the rodeo swallowing the juice, and it doesn't bother them anymore. It's all about that lining.
Excellent, Doctor. Well, I think we've pretty much wrapped it up with the questions for this week. Appreciate very much the information that's very relevant to everything that we're learning every single week. How can people find you for those that are new, that are coming on board and on every Friday at 4 p.m.? How can they find your information and your protocol?
Well, I got my website, a couple websites. One is, of course, www.gicure. There's a lot of information on there, blog posts. The Facebook page, really, that Ryan runs, I think I have the name right, Dr. Snow's Patients, Past, Present, and Future. It's not my group, but I do write on it quite a bit, and people have a tremendous amount of testimonials, which I really appreciative of. We pulled off some amazing stuff, and the people that have gotten healed have been generous with their story, and really well done. If you want to jumpstart this thing, you don't want to spend as much money. I mean, I charge $295 for an appointment with me, but that's for a 15-minute appointment. You can go to this Holistic Gastroenterologist. It's on the screen here. You can pick up one of the programs for $100 less, and you'll have everything that I know about your condition is on there. Every contingency. You tell me, I started off having diarrhea, but now I have constipation. It's in there. It tells you what to do. Whatever it comes up, it's in there. Over 40 years, I've retraced every conversation I've ever had. For $100 less, you get me way more than you would get from me from an appointment. So you should consider it. It's something you can have, you can share with somebody else, and it's a good deal. Everything I know is in there. It's in a structured form. I have another thing coming out later on that's going to have just a long dialogue of from the beginning, everything A to Z. It's not quite ready yet. So I want to make a comment. I know everyone might want to leave, but comment about a cast iron stomach and something called complement. Complement is an innate healing energy we have in our body that science can't explain. It's like a surge of immunity under the right conditions. Okay, that's linked to these guys, homeopathic medicine. You had, before antibiotics, you had men, women, sure, they were trying to find out everything in nature that would heal. It sounds crazy, but they'd eat spider webs. And there'd be somebody watching whatever happens to them. They got a fever, or they hiccuped or something. And they had these people that were volunteers, and they would feed them, the craziest stuff. They'd eat a bumblebee after it was dead. They'd eat a worm. And so these people were testing everything for us. And some of the things were kind of innate. Well, nothing really happened. But they didn't get sick as you would think, because they all had strong mucosal linings. Why? Because they were living in an age before those antibiotics. And last comment about that. I might have said it before another week, but think about this. Why won't kefir and those things heal we have inflammatory bowel? Why won't they heal you? Because they provide just a couple of strains of bacteria. You get sick in 1830. You have bread that has mold on it. You eat it. It's penicillin. Okay. To kill off the germ, it might kill off a couple of the strains of bacteria you have in your gut. But guess what? The next meal you have, living at that age, is probably going to have some kind of fermented food. It's going to provide you with the exact. Imagine how amazing this is. The exact strains of bacteria that the penicillin killed off. It's a cycle. And we don't have that, because with synthetic antibiotics, it's like a blowtorch. Wipes out everything. And you're sucking down the kefir, saying, how come I'm not getting healed yet? Oh, give me some kombucha. You're going to be adding like 2 strains of bacteria at a low dose, too, when you need another X number of them. Who knows how many, whichever antibiotics. I was talking to somebody today. They were taking the worst combination of antibiotics, Flagyl and I forget the other one, and kills off anthrax. I said, you gotta be kidding me. So just want to add that it's about cast iron stomach. If you get the mucosal line set up, it goes through your lungs, your sinuses, your bladder, and every cell, and you cannot get sick. All right? That's it for today.
Excellent, doctor. Thank you so much for answering all of our questions. Really appreciate it.
Okay. Well, we'll be back next week, and you know that all these audios are on my YouTube channel, and they're there for you to check out at any time. Okay? So long. See you next week. Talk to you next week.